Hey everyone, and welcome back to our R Programming for Beginners series. Now, in our last episode, we talked about what matrices and arrays are and how we can work with them inside of R. And inside today's episode, we step into one of the most important structures in R, that is data frames. You will work with them in nearly every R project, especially when handling real-world tabular data, such as sales records, survey results, or temperature readings. So, without further ado, let's get to discussing about them now, shall we? And before we move on with the video, a quick shout out to the R Programming Learn and Code app from Codin inside the Google Play Store. With this app, you can learn R right from your phone, anytime and anywhere. And there are engaging and interactive courses on the app that make learning fun. And with quick facts and quizzes inside each course, you'll be truly understanding R and not just memorizing it. It also has an R compiler which allows you to type and test any bits of R code that you want. So, if you want to learn R and are looking for somewhere to start, do check out the R Programming app from Codin inside the Google Play Store. Now let's move on with the video. What is a data frame? A data frame is like a table. It has columns and rows. Similar to an Excel sheet or Google sheet. Each row represents an observation or an entry. So, this row, which is the first row, Alex, 21, 170 and true, represents the data of one person. The person's name is Alex, his age is 21, his height is 170 centimeters, and he is a student. So, rows represent an entry or an individual case, whereas columns represents the type of data. This is one attribute. This is a column which contains data of height, so it is one attribute. So, now that you have a general idea about what a data frame is, let's get to talking about the characteristics of a data frame. Now, inside a data frame, each column can contain a different type of data. It can contain numbers, it can contain characters, or it can contain logical values as well. So, inside this data frame as well, this is a numeric data, age is a numeric data, name is character data, and whether the student passed or not, that is passed, is a logical data which has true and false values. So this combination of different data types inside a single data structure is what makes data frames so flexible and widely used. And now that we understand the concept of data frames visually, let's know about how we can create data frames, and later we'll create an actual data frame inside our R compiler as well. So in order to create a data frame, you will have to use this right here, this method, data.frame. And inside it, you'll have to store the name of the column and equals the values that you want to store inside it. So the name column will contain Ayush, Riya, and Sam. And likewise, age will contain 21, 22, 20, and so on. So here, I'm creating a simple data frame called students, and inside students, each column is created with the help of vectors. So C, which is a combined function used to create vectors, stores Ayush, Riya, and Sam, and it is inside the name column. So our data frame will look somewhat like this. The name will contain names, the age will contain 21, 22, and 20, and remember all of these are in order. So Ayush will have an age of 21, a height of 5.8, and a student value, that is student, true. So these are all in order, and so are the columns. And now that we know the concept about creating a data frame, let's actually create a data frame inside of our R compiler. So inside Codin.com's compiler section, let me head over to R compiler and then try to create a data frame. So in order to create a data frame, first I'll have to define the name of the data frame. So as our example was, okay, let me first of all increase the size for you so that you can see well. So inside our example, it was students, and then an arrow symbol to actually store the data frame. So data.frame, and inside this I will write the individual column names. So first of all, we will have the name column, and inside this we will have a collection, that is the combine function, and it will store a vector, that is a collection of values of names. So first of all, let's say our first name is Ayush, and then our second name is Riya, and then our third name is Sam. After that, we are done with this column. So we'll enter a comma and then move on to another column, that will be age. And this will also store a vector, which by the way is just a collection of values. If you don't know what vectors are, this combine function will store a collection of values, and that is basically what a vector is. So oops, not a string value. The age will be 21. So let's say Ayush's age is 21. Remember, all of this is in order. So Ria's age will be 22, and then Sam's age will be 20. After that, comma, and then the height, and then once again another vector. This will store numeric values as well. 5.8, Ayush's height is 5.8. Let's say Ria's height is 5.4, and Sam's height is 5.9. After that, finally, let's create a table called isStudent. So instead of isStudent, let's just create a student column, and this will hold a collection or a vector of Boolean values or logical values. So true. Let's say let's say Sam is not a student. So false. And that is it for our data frame. Now, in order to actually view how this data frame is, let's print it out. So we'll print out, okay, my bad, caps lock is on, students, and we'll run. So you can see that this is the index, and 1 2 3, meaning there are 3 rows. The name table has Ayush, Ria, and Sam. Age has 21, 22, 20, and so on. Height has the heights, and the student has the logical values. So this is how you create a data frame inside of R. And now that we know how to create a data frame, let's talk about accessing the values of this data frame. So after discussing about how we can actually create a data frame, let's talk about how we can access column values, or let's say how we can access specific values of a data frame column. First of all, to access a column inside a data frame, we use the dollar symbol. It's like asking R, give me just the name column, or give me only the age values or student values. So inside of our code, if we did students, $, and then name, it would give us the name column. Likewise, students, $age gives us the age column, and students, $student would give us the isStudent column of logical values. So like I said before, it's like just asking R to give us the name column. So let's practically fetch our name columns, and a bonus point, fetch specific values inside of a specific column. So if I wanted to fetch Ria, let's see how we can do that inside of our R compiler. So once again, let me first access the entire column of age. In order to do that, I would have to do students, and remember, $, and then age. And if I did that, it would output us the age values, that is 21, 22, and 20. And remember, this is a vector of age values. Now, if I wanted to access a specific age called 22, let's say, how would I do that? Well, a hint that I gave before, I told that this is a vector as well. So vector indexing works inside a data frame. So if I wanted to get 22, which is the second value inside of this vector, I would have to just mention its index. So in order to get that, I would do student $age, but inside of the age vector, I would want the second value. So I would just type out a pair of square brackets and then mention 2. Now this would give us, the second value, that is 22. Likewise, if I wanted to first of all access the, let's say, names, so I would do students, $, and then the name of the column, name. And if I wanted to access a specific name, let's say Sam, which is in the third index, I would just do name, first of all, this is the column, and to access a specific value, I would do 3, its index. So this would give us Sam. Now let's run this, and first of all, this line gives us Ayush, Ria, and Sam, the names of the name column, the entire column, and then mentioning its index would give us the specific value. It gives us Sam, since Sam is in the third index of the name column. And I hope that is clear for you guys. And then another way that you can achieve this is by entirely skipping the $sign rule. So if I just did students, which is the name of the data frame, and then square brackets, and let's see, this Sam value is in the third row and in the name column. So first of all, you mention the row, that is 3, it is in the third row, and then the column name which this value is in. It is in the third row and it is in the name column. So I would just have to write a pair of quotes and then name. Now this would output the same value. So Sam, now let's say I wanted to access Ayush. So in order to do that, it is in the name column, but it is in the first row. So I would have to first of all change the index value of the row to 1. Now this would output us Ayush. So I hope that is clear for you guys. And that was how you can access specific columns and specific values inside those columns. And I hope you understand that well. Now let's move on to a topic of adding or removing columns. So for now, our initial data frame only has 4 columns. They are name, age, height, and student. But what if I wanted to add another value? And we'll look into just that. First of all, let's look at theory, and then we will do it practically inside this compiler. Now, in order to add or remove columns, let's first talk about adding columns inside of our data frame. It's pretty simple. So if I wanted to add a new column inside of our data frame, I would just mention the name of the data frame, then mention the $sign, and then I would want to write the name of the new column that I'm adding. So let's say I'm adding a logical column, that is whether the student passed or not. So I would write the name of the data frame, $sign, and then the column name. And inside the column, I would just store another vector. And remember that these values of the new column should be equal to the values of the previous column. So if there are 3 values, or let's say 3 rows inside of the previous column, there should be 3 values inside of the column that you're adding. Whereas inside removing columns, you would just mention the name of the column. So inside students data frame, let's say I wanted to remove height, the height column. I would just mention that students data frame, $sign, then the height column, and then set its value to null. This will delete the height column. So let's see. First of all, if I wanted to add a new value, I would just mention that value after the $sign, after the, let's say, data frame, and then the $sign, and that would add the column. So if I do students $sign passed, it will add the student's value. And this is what I meant by the number of values should be equal to the previous data frame. So let's see. Each column inside of our previous data frame had 3 values, right? So when adding a new column, we need to mention 3 values as well. Otherwise, it will give us an error. And whereas if you wanted to remove a column, let's say I wanted to remove this height column, then I would just mention the height column, that is students $sign height, and then set its value to null. That would remove the height column entirely. Now we do know the theory about this, and we have discussed the theory. So let's do this practically inside of our compiler. So once again, I'm inside of our compiler. Now let's remove, or let's comment these values. Let's actually not comment the first value, since we need to know what our data frame looks like before. So for now, our data frame has 4 columns, and let's add another column to our data frame. So before we do that, let's just decrease the font size so that it looks more clear. So to actually add the name of our column, we'll just mention the name of the data frame, that is students, and then add a $sign, and then the name of the column that we want to add. So in our case, it is past. We want to add the past column, and let's mention the content of the column. So a vector, and it will contain first of all true, and then false, and then true. So it should have 3 values in order to actually add the column. Now let's run this, and let's print out the students data frame once again. So you can now see that the past column is added onto our data frame. And now let's finally remove a column. So in our example, we looked at removing height, so we'll remove height as well. So okay, let me just delete this bit of code, and then we will remove height. So once again, to remove height, we will have to mention the name of the data frame, the name of the column that we want to remove, that is height, and then set its value to null. Now this will remove the height column. So it's students. Okay, once again, sorry for my spelling, students. If we print out students, we'll be able to observe that the height column has been removed. So that is how you deal with adding and removing columns inside R. Now, after talking about adding and removing columns from a data frame, let's discuss about inspecting a data frame, which is a very important topic. Because whenever you load or receive a new dataset, the first thing you do is inspect it. So let's take a look at some of the methods or functions that help us in inspecting a data frame. First of all, we have the head function. This function lets us preview the first few rows of the data frame. Next up, nRow and nCol. It tells us the size of the data. That is, nRow shows us the number of rows, and nCol, that is nColumn, shows us the number of columns inside of a data frame. And finally, str, that is structure, helps us to understand the structure of the data frame. So let's preview some of these. So let's look at some of these methods inside of our compiler. Okay, now that we are inside of our R compiler, let's try to use some of the methods. So head would give us the first few rows of the student's data frame. But in our case, since it only has 3 rows, it will just return those 3 rows. So by default, the head function inside of R returns the first 6 rows of the data frame. But you can change the number of rows printed, or let's say returned, by the head function by mentioning a new parameter called n. If you type out n equals 10, it would give you 10 number of rows. Okay, in order to show how the head function actually works, I will have a data frame which has more than 6 number of rows. So here we have a data frame which has exactly 10 rows, and the columns are name, age, and score. So let's see what head function would do on the student's data frame. When we run this, you'll be able to see that it gives us the first 6 rows, that is Arav to Nisha, and then, well, 1 to 6. So this is what head does. But if you want a custom number of rows returned by the head function, you can just mention n equals, let's say I want 9 rows, and I'll run, and you can see that it returns us 9 rows of the student's data frame. So that is how head works. Now next up, let's look at another function that helps us in inspecting a data frame. Now, as I mentioned, the number of rows in this data frame is 10. So let's see what nRow results in when I do nRow, a pair of parentheses, and then students. Now when I do this, it will return us 10, meaning that there are 10 rows inside this data frame. And let's see how many columns are there. Well, we can clearly see that there are 3 columns, name, age, and score. But what will nCol return? So nColumn and then students. So 3 columns. And then finally, let's view the structure of students. So str and then students. Let me comment these as we know how they work already, and then run this. So you can see that it gives us a brief detail of the structures of the data frame, that is students. It says that it is a data frame, students is a data frame of 10 objects of 3 variables. So there are 10 rows of 3 variables, which are name, age, and score. So it says 10 objects of 3 variables. The variables are name, age, and score, and well, the objects are these objects, that is each individual row data. So I hope you understand how all of these inspection functions work. Now let's head over to a quick summary. So as a summary of today's topics, let's see what we learned today. Today we learned what a data frame is. We learned that a data frame is a table of rows plus columns. And then we learned that columns can have different types of data. And we learned how to create a data frame using data.frame inside of our R compiler. We learned that we can access the values of the data frame using a $sign, may it be columns or individual data inside those columns. And next, we learned how to inspect the data frame using functions like head, nRow, nColumn, and str. So that was it for this video. Great work making it this far. Data frames are everywhere in R, and getting comfortable with them now will make your journey much smoother later. In the next episode, we're taking it a step back and discussing about what operators are and how they work inside R. So hope you tune in for that. If you liked this video or found the video helpful, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more such videos. And until the next video, bye bye and happy coding.